Hello, welcome to our special meeting at PCS conference. We're also on Facebook Live to allow our members and reps who aren't here in Brighton to be able to hear some important information from the union in relation to our national pay campaign. The first half of this meeting will be broadcast on Facebook Live, so if you've got any questions that you want to add, if you send them in, then we'll try and include as many of those as we can in terms of that event. The second half of the meeting will be a closed meeting where we'll allow delegates here and observers to ask questions directly in this meeting. Colleagues, we've took some fundamental important decisions today on furthering our national pay campaign, and can I ask Mark Swatka, our General Secretary, to update our Facebook Live event on those decisions.
Okay, thank you, Janice, and can I thank all delegates who are in the room and the many people who are joining us on Facebook Live. I think the first thing that we want to report is that we're all in Brighton. We have delegates here representing PCS members from all parts of the UK, from all government departments and from all parts of the public and private sector. The PCS represents members. And we've had a really fantastic afternoon. We've taken a very important decision. We've been addressed by the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, John McDonnell. We've been addressed also by the Chair of the PCS Parliamentary Group, Chris Stevens. And I think the first thing that we wanted to report, and so that we can take questions from our Facebook Live members and activists, is that we have today, by a massive majority, I think there was only a couple of votes against, voted to move now to an industrial action ballot on the question of pay in the very short future in order to ensure that we can get a 5% funded pay award for all PCS members across those parts of the public sector that we're negotiating for. And we've taken that decision because the government has told us, despite the promise it made to everybody last year that there would be no 1% pay cap in the civil service in 2018, because just before Easter the Minister wrote to us and told us at a meeting that the government's only budgeted for 1% pay awards this year. And they've also told us if we want any more than 1%, they will require us to change terms and conditions or to agree to further efficiency savings and job losses in order to fund it. Now, our conference today, standing up for all of our members, has said no. They've said that is unfair and we're not prepared to accept it because other parts of the public sector have now broken the 1% pay cap, and our conference heard today that in Scotland, our members and our negotiators have managed to negotiate above the rate of inflation funded pay rises for all of our members working for Scottish Government and the devolved administrations. And conference, frankly, today, in a set of amazing speeches from our representatives on behalf of our members, have said why that's unfair. People reported that after 11 years of pay cuts, people are on the breadline, people think they're being treated unfairly by the government, and people have said that they are not prepared to put up with it. So we've taken a decision to move to a statutory ballot for industrial action, and this Facebook Live event is designed to allow people to ask us questions about what that means, and later on for delegates here to ask any practical questions about what happens next. And all I really want to say to those joining us today is what we agreed today in the hall is a strategy that we have not done before. First of all, it's asking all our members to vote in a ballot to give us a stronger negotiating position when we meet the Treasury and the Cabinet Office in the weeks ahead. You'll be heartened to know that last night we had a letter from the Cabinet Office saying they wanted to urgently meet PCS to discuss our pay claim. That hasn't happened before. That shows that they know what we're doing here, and obviously they've realised they have to negotiate with us. The motion and the reason why we're having a ballot is because we want to go to those talks not just armed with a strong argument and knowing that we have a moral case, but armed with a mandate from our members so that the Cabinet Office have to take us seriously and agree that they will not try to enforce a 1% vote. So the real thing that our delegates want to get across to all of our members here is the more members that vote, the more that we get above the 50% legal requirement, the bigger the majority, the stronger argument we have got in the negotiations, and we hope that that in itself will get the government to treat us in the way they've started to have to treat other public sector workers. But the motion was also clear that if the government still tried to ignore us, we will be consulting widely with our reps right across the union, about taking action that is designed to put the maximum amount of pressure on the government. And if we come back to you with news that the government has not treated us fairly, we will again consult very speedily about moving to that industrial action if it's required to put pressure on the government to treat us fairly. So what we all want to do now is ensure that every member of this union gets a ballot paper, returns that ballot paper, and votes yes to the question of industrial action, realising that if you do, we're in the strongest position we have been in for years, because this is a weak and divided government, and we have justice on our side. That's what we want PCS members to do in the next few weeks, and we want to take questions tonight from people around the country and here in the hall to ensure we leave no stone unturned, that Theresa May and Philip Hammond realise they can't treat their own loyal, hard-working staff worse than everybody else. We hope you agree with that. We hope you'll encourage your colleagues to vote in the ballot, but most of all, armed with a massive yes vote, we hope the government treats you fairly, and if they still refuse, that we can take the action that will force them to listen. So thanks for joining us. Thanks to all our delegates here for a brilliant debate. And let's ensure we use this hour well, and then we go on to do the work needed to win a massive majority in the ballot.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for updating those people who have joined us through Facebook Live in order to, in terms of the decisions that their delegate conference has taken today. If I can just let people in the room know that if you want to ask a question during the Facebook Live part of the event, then you need to write that question down with your name and your branch and hand it to Martin Cook, who is, Martin? Yeah, Martin and John, and they will give it to me. Once the Facebook Live has ended, then we can take contributions in the normal way, so you might feel more comfortable waiting for that session. Okay, we have got some questions coming in for members and reps who are watching the Facebook Live event. And the first one is from Catherine from the MOD, who says, I'm on the MOD pay scales, so how can a national vote mean I can get more pay?
Okay, that's a really important question, and the thing that all of our members need to understand is that the government's position for us at the moment is there's no funding for civil service pay other than the 1% they budgeted for a number of years ago, and that any pay rises above 1% must come from departments finding efficiency savings. All of our members will benefit, whether they started work yesterday or whether they've been here 20 or 30 years, if we're successful in this campaign, for this simple reason. We would get 5% funding from the Treasury to hopefully to have national negotiations to ensure all of our members benefit from the extra funding, or as a minimum, every department would get the additional funding that they would have to negotiate pay rises with PCS with in the different departments. So whether you're on the bottom of the scale or on the top of the scale, it does not matter. You all benefit if we can achieve up to 5% extra funding, and all members we wish to benefit. And I think it's important that we stress that. And it's also important to stress that our objective here is to have central talks with the Treasury so that everybody gets the same pay rise across the board. But if the government agrees to give us more money but won't give us the national talks, as a minimum we want every employer to get the extra money so that they have to negotiate with PCS how it's distributed. So put simply, every single member will benefit if this campaign is successful.
Thanks, Mark. A question coming from Philip, who works for the DVSA. He says, I'm nearing retirement and have seen the pay freeze, and have seen that the pay freeze has meant my final salary has fallen in value. I'm prepared to fight for a pay rise, but many younger staff don't seem interested. How can I persuade them to get involved?
Well done, Philip, and well done for really putting a really great trade union principle that we should all stand together and we want everybody to benefit. And what Philip is really getting across here is that, you know, people who've been here a long time have been particularly punished by the disgraceful government decisions to give us 0% and then 1% over a number of years, which has meant, because of inflation, increases to national insurance and extra pension costs, that all of our members are worse off in real terms. And what Philip points out that we want everybody to understand is some people have joined the civil service, and some of them have come here from 0-hour contracts jobs, and even though we know it's not great, they say to us, well, it's better than what I had in a 0 hours contract. And the point we want to get across there is it may be better, but it would be on average £3,500 better than what you get today if we hadn't had these cuts in real terms over the last 10 years. So whether people have just started or whether people have been here a long time, you would all benefit from an additional across-the-board pay rise, and it would begin to do something about the money that people have lost, either because they worked here before or if they've joined us because they should have joined, frankly, on a higher salary than they're getting when they start now.
Thanks, Mark. Michael, we don't know what department he works in, but he said, what would you consider action to get what action would you consider to get maximum impact?
Okay, well, that's a really good question. And at the heart of the motion that we carried today, it was the principle that the action we want to take is not to protest. We don't just want to say we're unhappy and have a one-day strike and say we're protesting. It is action that the conference was clear is designed to win. And to win, that must mean by definition that we want to put pressure on the government departments and the employers and on the government itself. So what we've agreed today is that whilst we ask members to give us a mandate, and let's remember we have to get over a 50% turnout, the first thing we do is we go to the employer in a strengthened position and try to negotiate a better deal than we're getting at the moment. Whilst that's going on, the motion asks us, and the new NEC will oversee, consultation throughout PCS with our reps in every part of our membership to talk about the action that will have the most impact and will put the most pressure on. And that's going to be a product of consultation. But as I said today when we had the press conference after the debate, what we should remember as PCS members is we keep the country running. And when you think about the jobs that our members do, then it tells you how important we are and how the government depend on our members. And we know that includes Brexit planning. We know it includes delivering flagship policies like universal credit, people getting passports, driving licence, car tax, paying their tax, accessing services through call centres, working in courts where you need our members in order for judges and juries to hear criminal trials. We know that our members do critical jobs. So the real answer to this question is, let's not underestimate our strength and our power, but we want to talk to the reps elected in the groups and the branches for them to talk to members to tell us how that action can be most effective. That's why this strategy is really important. The government knows we mean business, we talk to them and try and get more, but while we're doing that, we're talking to all of our reps so that if we have to take the action, they notice instantly and hopefully it encourages them to treat people fairly.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Sundeep from HMRC sent in a question via the Facebook Live event. Now, can I ask people on the Facebook Live to continue sharing the event? And he asks, how are we going to get members to vote when many members are facing redundancy or relocation?
Okay, well, we know because at our conference today we've also been debating office closures and job cuts and privatisation. Let's be clear that what this union has faced and continues to face is a hostile government that is attacking our members the length and breadth of the UK across all employers. And we know for some people their immediate concern is their office is closing. For other people, they're worried about potential cuts in the redundancy scheme. And for other people, they're worried about the constant pressure of work and the difficult terms and conditions and the stress of what they're asked to do every day. When we focus on pay, what we have agreed at the conference is this simple proposition. If the union gets a statutory mandate that shows the government that we are strong and gets the government to recognise that it has to make concessions to us, it instantly means we are strengthened across all the other issues. We are strengthened in our branches, in our groups, and in our other negotiations nationally that we're doing on the redundancy scheme. So our simple proposition is this, really. We all benefit if we get a pay rise, but we all benefit particularly if the union is strong and the government is seeing we are strong, and we'll be in a better position to fight effectively those office closures, fighting for more staff and opposing privatisation. So it's a simple proposition, really. Pay unites the whole membership. If we are stronger as a result, we are stronger to fight those specific battles that members face in different departments.
Thanks, Mark. I think we're about halfway through the allotted time for our Facebook Live half an hour, so we've got a few more questions that I'm going to take. I've had one question come in from someone from the room, but I'm going to prioritise the questions that are coming in through Facebook Live at the moment, but I will come back to that question when we finish that event. Peter from, I think it's DFT, What will be the timescale for the ballot? Can we hit the summer?
Okay, so the NEC's motion was carried this afternoon, and I think the first thing to say is that the new NEC will take up office at the close of conference, and we have called an NEC meeting to set the ballot timetable and to implement the motion. So that meeting is taking place on Thursday afternoon, and so the final details will be decided there. But the NEC put the motion to conference was clear about this, that on the one hand we have a dilemma that obviously the longer we leave the ballot, the more chance that gives us to talk to more and more members, and arguably it gives you a better chance to win. But the longer you delay, the more division the employer is likely to cause by calling people into departmental pay talks, and as the questioner has pointed out, we could lose some key industrial targets and pressure points, such as the peak holiday period, given the members we represent at the borders and the passport offices. So the new NEC is going to have to consider that carefully. The old NEC, when it discussed it, envisaged this ballot taking place in early June, and the new NEC will have to discuss that and move forward. But what we would say is the bottom line is this: there is no good having a ballot if the idea is to give us leverage in the talks, if it takes us so long to get to the ballot that the talks have ended, and that we have passed the pay settlement dates that for many, many people in this union are in July or on the 1st of August. So I think what people can say there is a window of time to have the ballot, to give people a bit of time to go back and organise, but to ensure we get the result so that we can use it to pressure the employer in the talks. But I think all of that tells us that the timescale we are looking for there for the new NEC is going to be when it is really in June, and how quickly we can get a ballot result to ensure we can use it with the employer in late July.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I've got two more questions that have come in from people participating in the Facebook Live event. So I'm going to take those two questions, then move into the closed session of the meeting. But just to say to people who are perhaps presently putting in questions through the Facebook Live, we will endeavour to get you an answer to those questions even after that event's finished. So I've got two questions. I'll give Mark both of them at the same time so that we can make best use of our time. We've got a question from John who says, can we refuse to carry out Brexit work and refuse to staff helplines? And a question from Adele, have we any different strategies for getting above the 50% threshold?
Okay, two excellent questions. So on the question of Brexit preparation, the reality is if we have a statutory ballot that gives us the authority to call lawful industrial action, then we are free to target what action that we see fit. And clearly Brexit preparation will be something that the union is going to want to look at very carefully. Of course, it depends on having high levels of membership in the affected areas, having reps and having members who will be confident enough to take the action. But as you'll have seen from my earlier answer, our consultation will be with every single part of the union in order to have these discussions. And when we have done all of that, rest assured that the new executive will be wanting to ensure, and I think this is a thing we have to keep repeating, the purpose of the action is not to protest, it is to win. And to win, that means the government, if we haven't persuaded them in the talks, must feel pressure. And to feel pressure, it must follow that we are going to want to be looking at those areas that have the biggest and most immediate effect. And therefore, what we would urge people to do is, now that you know on Facebook Live and throughout the union, members who are watching this and reps, make sure that if you're a member, you talk to your local rep. If you're a local rep, talk to somebody at your branch or in your group to feed forward your ideas, because this is a union and the people who know best what work they do and what effect it can have is our members. And so we need to ensure this consultation really digs down to ensure that action is really effective. On the 50% threshold, all I think we should say is that we should all remember that the 50% threshold is not the government changing the law because it wants more people to vote. It's the government changing the law because it doesn't want anyone to have a strike. The 50% threshold is unjust, it's not applied anywhere else, and it's deliberately used to shackle trade unions. And we should always remember that. But we should also remember, now that they have changed the law, imagine how we'll feel if we have a 99% yes vote for a strike and the turnout is 49%, because it won't give us the legal mandate that we want in the talks. So this is our call to arms. It is a call to ensure that what every single member of this union must realise is if they don't vote, it is effectively a no vote. And this is something we've really got to tell people. Not voting is really voting no. They're members of our union, and we want everybody to vote. I mean, what is clear, it is actually better for somebody to vote in this ballot and vote no than not vote at all, because it is participating, it gets us over the threshold. We believe our members are going to vote massively in favour, because we had a consultative ballot last year. Let's remember that was a 99% vote to submit the pay claim and an 80% vote to take industrial action, and the turnout was 48.8%. That is a really, really big vote, and the Land Registry Group of this union delivered over 70% turnout, and we have big departments that achieved over 50%. So we know it can be done, but we know this will be harder because members can only vote by post. So what we are going to be doing now over the coming weeks, and what we're going to be doing for the remainder of this meeting, is having a detailed discussion about what we need to do, but it will be based on this simple proposition. We need every rep to try and talk to as many members as they can. We need members to talk to their colleagues and urge them to vote. We need members to encourage people who are not in the union to join the union and make sure that they vote. We need to get the message across that actually not putting your ballot paper in the letterbox and posting it back is actually accepting Theresa May treating you worse than any other part of the public sector and telling you you're having 1%. That not doing that act of voting is letting Theresa May get away with treating people in an appalling way. So we will now, using the ballot data we got from the consultative ballot, be contacting branches, looking at the results that we got at the end of last year, targeting resources to help people, but ultimately getting this message across. It's a very simple thing for someone to look out for the ballot paper, open it, put an X in the yes box and post it back. Just remember that one simple act, if it is done by people in their tens of thousands, will strengthen the hand of your negotiators when we go to the Treasury. That act alone will put much more pressure on them, and we want everyone to do it. And then we want everybody to follow closely what happens in the talks, but remember this guarantee we're giving to people. Once we've had the talks, we will report back to everybody in this union about what the outcome of the talks was, and we will then consult about implementing any mandate that you have got. So my final message to members would be, Janice, if today you're not convinced about going on strike, we don't want you to conclude you should vote no. We actually want you to say this. Have a think about it, but still vote yes. Because voting yes means that your vote puts pressure on the government in the talks, and we will then hope that during that process, if we have to take action, that you can be convinced that your action can put pressure on the government and we can win. But whatever you do, do not, at this point, just ignore the ballot paper, because then Theresa May wins. And let's get that action, that sort of attitude right out there in every workplace. Let's build this ballot result. And I'll just leave this section with this thought. Just imagine how we're going to feel if the day the ballot closes, we can go to the Treasury and show them that we have done what they don't think we can do. They don't think we can breach the 50% threshold. If we breach it, it is such a massive statement of intent that you hope they will see sense and do the decent thing. And just remember, whether you work in a big government department or a small public sector employer, you are worth so much more than this disgracefully unfair treatment that blames you as soon as something goes wrong, like Windrush, but doesn't acknowledge the hard work you put in every single day. Don't let them get away with it. Vote yes, return your ballot paper, and let's make this the year that we get better than the rate of inflation, so our members and their families can enjoy slightly better times than the government wants them to have.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Mark. And I'm going to bring to a conclusion part of this meeting that's been broadcast on Facebook Live. And I'd just like to thank everyone for tuning in, as they say, and for participating through putting in your questions. Continue to share the event, and we get some really good feedback in terms of the amount of shares, and that obviously gets the message out. Just to say that if you're not at a conference and you're a rep or a member and you're watching on Facebook Live, our delegates will be down here until Thursday lunchtime. I suspect some of them may have a day off on Friday, but they'll certainly be back in their offices from next Monday. But anything you can do Tuesday, that's right. Bank holiday's cancelled for us. Anything you can do before they return from conference to their offices to talk to members on your section, the people you meet in the tea room, and so on and so forth, that would be really helpful, and we will launch our campaign as soon as possible after that. And finally, just to prove that some General Secretaries are tech savvy, we've had a message of good luck from Dave Ward, the General Secretary of the CWU, who is watching us on Facebook Live, a message of solidarity and support, and of course that's really welcome because it comes from a General Secretary of a union that beat a threshold in a national ballot, so I think that's a really good signal. So I'll end our Facebook Live section of this meeting now and wish you good luck for the rest of the week. Thank you.